Jess, it's so lovely to meet you face to face. I just want to start by saying I'm so sorry for your loss and hearing about Sue-Ann. I know it's a really difficult time. So thank you so much for calling me yesterday and having a bit of a chat. The purpose of today is really just to check in to see how you and the family are doing, and then start to plan a beautiful service that's going to honour the life of Sue-Ann. So
Beautiful.
are you okay if we start going through some of the questions?
Thank you, yeah.
Yeah, great. So first I just want to go through some of the details we covered yesterday just to make sure I've got all of that correct before I go on. So you're first cousins with Suzanne?
Exactly,
Sue-Ann,
yeah.
right?
My mum is her auntie, so the family, I've stepped in because, as you can understand, the family is just quite bereaved at the moment, so I'm just trying to help by organising some of the formalities.
Wow, they're very lucky to have you. So Sue-Ann Jacobs is her name. Did she have a middle name at all?
No, just
No.
the hyphenated Sue-Ann.
Sue-Ann. Okay, beautiful. And her her date of birth was the 1st of March 2003. Yeah.
Classic Pisces.
Oh, water signs. I've got water signs in my family as well.
we love them.
And you've decided that you will cremate, Sue-Ann.
Yes, that's the preference from the family.
Okay, amazing. Okay, I'm going to go through a lot of detail now just to get to really know Sue-Ann so that I can design and create a beautiful service to honour her.
Amazing.
Did Sue-Ann have a partner at all?
Not presently,
No.
no. Quite young,
She
you know,
was
just
quite young, 20.
big group of friends. She would date, but no solid commitment
special.
at this point. Yeah.
Okay, and do you know where Sue-Ann was born?
She was born in Lismore.
Lismore.
Yeah,
Gosh.
just down the road.
Oh, she's a local Northern Rivers girl.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, hopefully she'll have a big community there.
She does.
Yeah.
Yeah, she does.
And what about her parents? What are her parents' names?
Her parents' names are. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Take your time.
Roger. My uncle Roger.
Uncle Roger
And Mary.
and Mary.
Yeah.
And did they have the same last name as Sue-Ann?
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
Yeah, very tight family.
How about any brothers and sisters?
Yeah, she had a younger brother. Has a younger brother.
Yeah, it's hard.
Philip.
Philip, younger brother. Okay. Tell me a little bit about Sue-Ann in her younger years when she was a child. Did you grow up with her?
We did, because we're quite close in age. We were really close growing up. Always really creative. She always loved to dream up scenarios where we could dress up. She loved to make costumes, and she would even paint sets for us when we were kids. She was always very artistic and just made play a whole lot of fun for us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Were there any particular performances that you put on together, or do you recall anything specific?
We loved The Little Mermaid.
Oh, it's one of my favourites too.
Yeah, she absolutely loved it. She used to make us, pretend we had fins and
Oh,
pretend that we were under the sea and...
did she sing the classic song?
Of course.
Of course. Of course.
Of course,
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry to upset you.
No, it's a happy memory. It is.
Oh.
It's really bittersweet. Yeah, we would belt them out at the top of our lungs.
A
She was
living room like performance.
Exactly. Our parents loved it, I'm sure. They would tell us they loved it.
Of course they did. Of course they did.
She was a better singer than me.
Oh, I'm sure you're very talented as well.
Thank you.
Tell me, I know that you've already said that Sue-Ann isn't religious, but did she have any sort of spiritual life or spiritual beliefs that you're aware of?
Not in a traditional sense. I really do think that her artistic pursuits were her form of religion.
Yeah.
It was really important to her, her creative community, her just her constant need to express herself creatively. I think that was her religious practice.
Yeah, the driving force. Okay, that's a great expression and articulation of that. What about her education or schooling? Was she doing anything at the time of her passing?
She was at university, at a local arts school. She graduated high school, had a pretty standard time in high school in Lismore, good group of friends around her, and then She went on to university. She would have been graduating at the end of next year, doing a Bachelor of Visual Arts.
Oh, wow. Gosh, she was obviously very talented.
She was, yeah, in a lot of different forms, painting, photography. She loved to explore all sorts of mediums.
A real creative spirit.
Yeah.
What about, was she working at all? Was she doing any part-time or full-time work?
Yeah, she was working casually at a local cafe. Yeah, but her studies were her main focus, I believe.
Yeah, great. You've already said that she didn't have a partner. I'm assuming there was no children.
No children.
No children.
No. I don't know if she wanted children. She was still too young.
Yeah, figuring things out.
Figuring things out, yeah.
Yeah. What about in terms of the family and when she was younger? Did they move around at all? I know you said she was born in Lismore, but were there any other places that they lived together?
I know her dad travelled a lot for work. He didn't really take the family with him every time. So Lismore was always their home base, but I know that they visited Papua New Guinea and they visited the Philippines. They would like to make family trips out of it whenever they could, so that the period of time that her dad was away wasn't too long. Because I know it would have been hard on her mum, Mary. So they worked to really try to keep the family together as much as they could, while also, her dad trying to support the family by taking this job that was filled with travel. And I do think that those travels helped inspire Sue-Ann
That's
from a young
interesting.
age.
Tell me more about that.
Well, she went to these places that were so completely different from where she was from, and experienced these new cultures. And I think it's just really cool to be exposed to that at such a young age. And yeah, I think she drew a lot from that experience.
Did she enjoy the travel?
She did, yeah, she did. I mean, it's difficult as a kid because you don't really understand the weight of it and just how special it is to be able to do that. I think as a kid you would take it for granted because you don't understand that not everyone gets to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
But I think as she was getting older, she was coming to learn just how special it was.
Appreciate it more.
Yeah.
That's totally understandable. What about, I know that they did a lot of travel, but in terms of their own cultural heritage or beliefs, was there something that sort of was defining of Sue-Ann or her family in that sense?
I don't think so. I mean, classic Australian upbringing, the family was Catholic, but not strictly Catholic by any means, not practicing. They were quite progressive, are quite progressive. So they just tried to live a life that was as conscious and kind as possible. They really are beautiful people.
Yeah. Well, we'll make sure that's reflected in the service. And so just to make sure that I'm not missing anything, while Sue-Ann was Catholic, she actually wasn't practicing in any sort of dedicated religious way.
That's right. It wasn't important to her by any means. I don't think that she would want it to be part of any sort of celebration of her life.
Okay.
Because she didn't identify with the religion.
Okay, great. And then you've already talked and given me a little bit of a flavour for who Sue-Ann was as a person and this creative spirit that she was. Were there any other passions or any parts of her personality that you think would be really important to bring out in the service?
I know she really aspired to travel more, and it's just such a shame that she won't get to now. I mean, I always envisioned her graduating university and traveling the world. She wanted to go visit the big art galleries in France and in Italy and learn from the best painters throughout history, the masters. I know she would have loved to have done that. So if there could be some reference to her maybe traveling in the afterlife. I really like to think that that's something she's doing now.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thought. So some sort of nod to sort of traveling in the afterlife is how you described it.
Yeah.
Great. we're going to go through in a bit more detail how a service runs and the structure of it, and some potential ideas you might already have or things I can help you nut through. So I've made a note of that, and we'll come back to it a little bit later on as well.
Yeah.
What about any particular community services or causes that might have been of sort of special interest to Sue-Ann?
It's a good one, actually. She loved to be involved in, I don't know the name of the organisation, but it's a local group who help neurodivergent children explore their artistic side. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you upset again. I'm so sorry. Take your time. There's no rush.
Thank you.
You were saying that there was a group, you're not sure of their name, but they help neurodivergent children with their artistic expression.
Exactly. So it's just such a beautiful thing for her to do, and such a Sue-Ann thing, because she really believed in the power of creativity, and she saw how it would help these children who really struggled socially find their way and find their voice through art.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And do you know if any of those children or families will be attending the service?
I would like to think so. She was close with at least three that she mentioned to me, 3 children who she worked really closely with. And I know that that the families were quite closely involved as well, the parents, and they really adored Sue-Ann and really loved what she was doing for their children.
Oh, amazing. We can also talk about if there's sort of anything specific that you want involved in the service based on that experience with the work she does there. What about any other recreations or hobbies? Can you think of anything else that would kind of bring to life the person that Sue-Ann was for me?
She loved the ocean.
Ah,
Loved the ocean.
Great.
I mean, I guess it all started with her Little Mermaid obsession, but as soon as she got a car, she would often be driving to the coast and jumping in the water. She was learning to surf and just loved to be by the water as much as she possibly could. Pretend she was a mermaid.
Oh,
I
mean, she was in a beautiful part of the world to be able to do that, wasn't
Exactly,
she?
exactly.
Yeah. Any favourite beach or area around here?
She loved Belongil Beach.
Belongil Beach.
Yeah. She would tell me that she loved the way that the coastline curved along and you could see the mountains in the distance.
Oh, yeah. It is beautiful down there. That is one of my favourite landscapes as well.
Yeah, it's really special.
I'm really familiar with it. Okay, that's amazing. So also the ocean, very important to her and her soul. What about any particular likes or dislikes? It could be food or colours or funny little quirks that kind of give me a feel for her personality.
Yeah, she famously hated peas.
Peas?
Hated peas.
As in the food? Peas?
As in the food, in any form. Mushy peas, garden peas, minted peas.
Oh.
She just had this real hatred for peas.
Oh, that's so cute.
I know,
Yeah.
and the family would tease her about it. So I think a reference to that in the service could bring some lightheartedness.
Yeah.
Just hatred of peas.
Oh, what a strange quirk.
I know.
Anything else?
She was allergic to cats, and I mean, I have a cat, and she could never come into my house because she would just break out into hives.
Oh, awful.
I think she wanted to like cats, but she just couldn't. But I mean, aside from all of that trivial stuff, not that her hatred of peas is trivial, but I mean, she hated bigotry. She hated inequality. She was all about social justice and fighting for what's right, and she had really strong beliefs, and I think she was really struggling to see any political turmoil in the world and things that were, any way humans were mistreated or anyone was prejudiced against. Yeah.
So heavy for her.
Yeah, it was. She really carried it heavily on her shoulders, I think. She wanted to do so much and often felt powerless.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of people that feel like that in today's crazy world, things that are going on. Okay, that's given me some lovely little thought bubbles as to what we might be able to do with this service. You've talked a little bit about the travel she did as a child and around that desire to travel once she finished study. A little bit about all her art. Was there any particular genre of art? I know you also mentioned photography. Any particular art that you'd want to draw my attention to?
Let's see. I mean, her most beloved art form was painting. I know she admired the masters and the work of art, like the way they worked with light, like Rembrandt and things like that. I'm not artistic by any means, so I don't
mind. That's enough to get me going.
Yeah.
That's perfect. So the masters, and you cited Rembrandt then.
Yeah.
What about any of the photography aspects?
She loved landscape photography. I know she'd often take a camera to the beach. I mean, we talk about that coastline. She had hundreds of photos of that beautiful coastline that she loved. I think she drew a lot of inspiration from that, and she loved to capture it. She may have even painted it. I'm sure that's something she would have done.
Okay. You talked about her being allergic to cats, the poor thing. How about animals in general? Was she an animal lover, or take them or leave them?
Obsessed with dolphins. Obsessed with dolphins. Whenever she was in the ocean and she would see a pod of dolphins, it would just make her day. It would be all over Instagram, and she would just put a big smile on her face, and she loved to imagine the life that they would live under the ocean.
Back to the Little Mermaid again.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about Sue-Ann sort of in the last 12 months or so. What sort of life was she leading with her study and her friends and her work with neurodivergent children?
It was a busy life. It was a full life, really close community. I know she had a very strong group of friends. It's hard to know where the heaviness came from, because she just filled her life with so much work and so much social interaction and so much community service that we really thought that she was going on to big things.
It's the hard thing about suicide, isn't it? Sometimes we don't totally understand what's going on in someone's head. Are there any special mentions of people that were involved in Sue-Ann's life at various points in time that we might need to incorporate that have already passed?
Yeah, I've talked to her parents about this. She has 6 really close friends who would like to be involved in some capacity. I think they have an idea of things they can contribute, and they're planning on working in some sort of artistic expression that they can kind of devote to Sue-Ann's memory. I can give you their details, and
that would be really helpful.
I know they're happy to get in touch with you and to let you know what they would like to contribute to the service.
Perfect. I think I might have confused you a little bit then with my question, but that's a great piece of information to know. So just to make sure I got that down quickly, so she's got 6 friends that would like to be involved in the service, and they've got some sort of artistic expression or gift they'd like to to represent.
That's right.
Okay, that sounds amazing. And then the other thing I wanted to check with you was, is there anyone that's passed, sadly, in the family that would need to be mentioned at the service? Any special grandparent or auntie or uncle or someone in Sue-Ann's life that we might need to honour in some way?
Yeah, our grandmother on Mary's side, so maternal grandmother, played a big role in Sue-Ann's life. This grandmother loved to paint as well, and I really think that she inspired Sue-Ann, and that was something that they shared a love of. And I know Sue-Ann was devastated when our grandma passed away. So I think it would be really nice to have mention of her in the service.
Beautiful. Do you know what her maternal grandmother's name was?
It was also Mary.
Traditional name in the family. Beautiful. Okay, I've made note of that. Anyone you know that definitely won't be able to attend the funeral that would also need to be mentioned?
There are some other cousins of ours who are overseas who I don't think will be able to join.
Okay.
Flights being so expensive. We have a cousin Joshua in Canada, and we have a cousin Rachel who is in London. Yeah, and I know they would like to be here. Someone might FaceTime them in.
But a special mention would be worthwhile.
Yeah, I think it would be appropriate.
Okay, perfect. So Joshua and Rachel.
Yeah.
Great. I've made note of that. What do you think would be the one thing that you'd want Sue-Anne to be remembered by? What's the one? Can I just sum it up in a phrase or a word? What would be the most important thing that symbolises Sue-Anne's life?
I think the beauty that she brought to everyone's life around her. She was always just making things more beautiful, whether it was, decorating sets when we were playing as children, whether she was, decorating the Christmas tree. She always did such a beautiful job, and she was all about making things very aesthetically pleasing and beautiful.
Yeah.
She brought a lot of beauty into everyone's life.
What a beautiful sentiment. Okay, well that will be the word that I look to honour as we think about designing this service. If it's okay now, we'll start to get into some of the specifics of the service. Now, before we do that, I just wanted to double check. At the moment, I understand that the date is still a little bit TBC. Is that correct?
Exactly. We have had to delay it by about a week. We're still waiting on a report from the coroner. Because it was a suicide, it's quite a bit more complicated. So there's a bit of a delay.
Okay, so we're looking for about in a week's time. You can come back to me once you
you
have the final date. There's no rush on that.
Thank you. I'll be liaising with the family. And
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Take your time with that. So we'll go through this and we'll start to put it together, and then as we know the date, we'll obviously be able to kind of lock timings and things in. But as a starting point, I'll take you through sort of the flow and the structure of a traditional service. Now, you have all the creative agency here to make changes as you see fit and what you think would align to what the family would want for Sue-Anne. So usually what we would do is play a piece of music as people are entering the chapel. Then I would do a welcome and introduction and potentially a verse to obviously let people know we're there to honour Sue-Anne's life. We'd usually then have a eulogy, which could be done by myself or somebody else. We'd have a couple of speakers and a reflection, then a reading or a prayer. Then we would do the committal, which is essentially the moment when the body that will be in the coffin is sort of formally separated from the congregation. So it's often a closing of the curtain within the chapel that we'll be in. There's a thank you and a farewell, and then music as people leave the chapel. Yeah?
Yeah, that sounds lovely.
That's okay?
Yeah.
Is anything jump out to you as something that you really wouldn't like in terms of that flow? Or are you happy generally speaking?
That does sound lovely. As long as I mentioned earlier, we're incorporating those friends.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thinking about that could be a lovely moment. Maybe if we did it after the eulogy, what do you think?
We obviously trust you. We think you're wonderful and you have a beautiful energy. So we're happy for you to suggest the flow of the service and whatever you think will work nicely.
Perfect. Well, I'll put something together, and then I'm happy to run it by you so you can sort of represent the family and make sure that we put it together beautifully. Okay, so I'm thinking potentially after the eulogy we can do the 6 friends and have them come up with these artistic expressions as a representation of Sue-Anne. What about music? We've got the opportunity to play music. Is there any special music that you think, like...
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. She loved Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift!
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a fan too.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you were going to tell me The Little Mermaid or not. But
I don't know. They're along the same vein, I guess. 25, 30 years later. Yeah, big Swiftie.
Great. Are there any particular songs from Taylor that you think would be appropriate or that she would enjoy having played at the service?
Because, let's see now. She really loved the song Style.
I I don't think that one's coming to mind.
I think that's
but-
what it's called.
Okay, that's all right. I can do some research.
And I can get back to you. I mean, her mum will know better because she would often just blast these songs.
Of course.
So I can check with Mary if there is any specific track, but I know she was a really big Swiftie.
Great. Okay, that'll be beautiful, and I'm sure the congregation will appreciate
Yeah.
that. What about the eulogy? Was there anyone in the family that were keen to do the eulogy, or friends?
It's being discussed presently. A decision hasn't been made yet.
No worries.
I think one of the 6 friends, or even if they did something together, a number of them, yeah, we're still working it out. It's obviously a sensitive subject because, you know, if someone really wants to do it, they don't want to take the opportunity away for someone else who might not be able to speak up about it. It's, yeah.
That's okay. You've got some time, so let the
Thank you.
conversations unfold.
When will we need to let you know?
Look, I'm really flexible. I think the thing would be that if people decide in the end that they don't want to speak and I will need to be the one that does it, I will need a little bit of time to pull it together. So my preference would be to have 72 hours to do that.
Okay.
So that'll be somewhat dependent on when the service date ends up being.
Okay.
But that will give you some indication. Yeah, you've got a couple of days to...
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll get onto that.
How about any particular readings or poems? Any particular writers that Sue Ann might have really loved or appreciated?
Yeah, she loved the work of Mary Oliver. I think that's what her name is.
Mary Oliver. So many Marys in Sue Ann's
I know,
life.
it's a
Yeah, it's
theme.
beautiful.
Yeah, there's a particular poem that was written by that woman. I can look it up and send it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that would be nice.
Mary Oliver reading, that sounds great. You can follow that up for me. The other thing is that I have with me here today in my bag, and I can also send it to you electronically, a selection of readings
Okay.
if you or the family wanted to have a
Great.
peruse and
Love
see it.
to look at that.
Great,
Yeah,
I'll make
thank
sure.
you.
Would it be best to email that to you?
Please. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Are there any special things other than the kind of the artistic, creative things that the 6 friends are going to bring up? Is there any other items that you think, or tributes that would be important to incorporate on the day?
I think if we can incorporate things like a paintbrush or a camera,
yes,
or
yeah.
you know, symbolic
Anything
things.
from the ocean?
A shell, maybe.
Yeah.
Just symbolic things that we can remember Sue Ann by would be nice.
Okay, that sounds lovely. We've talked about maybe a friend or family member for the eulogy. How about any other readings? Or do you think, is there anyone else that would like to be involved in some way from the broader community?
I think depending on how he's feeling, because he's really struggling, but her brother Philip would, I think he'd regret not being involved in some capacity. And I think him doing a reading would be a nice way for him to be able to contribute. I think he'd struggle writing something himself, but if, like, as you said, we'd love to take a look at your list of readings and see if,
Of course.
I mean, he can look through those and see if anything connects with him.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
And you can also let Philip know that if on the day he does find that he's struggling, it's easy for me to sub in for him as well. So
Thank you.
yeah, we can help him through that for
Thank
sure.
you.
What about any photos or things like that? Would that be important for the family to have a
I
photo?
think so. Yeah, I think so. What about a slideshow?
Yeah, we love incorporating a slideshow or montage if
Okay.
that's something the family is interested in.
Yeah, and would one of us put that together? Is that how that works?
It can happen a couple of different ways. Of course, I would need access to the photos, so it is possible for me to put something together using iMovie and potentially music like a Taylor Swift song or another. So I can do that for you. Or if the family want to do it, either way, whatever's going to feel most therapeutic and kind of for the family. Sometimes it's upsetting, but sometimes it's helpful and joyful to go through those photos. So
And yeah. I know her dad has been going through a lot of photos just to, feel connected to her. So I think that's something that he would be able to manage.
okay.
Yeah.
So that was Roger. So you'll talk to Roger about whether or not, or how the photo things will come together, but potentially he'll be able to pull that together and you'll let me know.
Yeah, Uncle Rog will be all over that. He's a bit of an AD nerd.
Oh, great.
And I think it'll give him a sense of purpose and all of the grief.
Yeah. You mentioned before that with the neurodiverse children that Sue-Ann's been working with, that some of them may be actually attending. Will there be any other children attending? Do you know?
Maybe some second cousins in the family, but no one who is particularly close. It would just be happenstance. Like if family members have children and they can't get a babysitter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And just, sometimes people ask, children are absolutely welcome at the service. There are some schools of thought that actually it can be really healing and really important for children to go through the grieving process in community. So we will welcome that and make sure that they're well looked after on the day.
Really lovely.
I mentioned before this idea of the committal that happens in the service. So that is the moment when symbolically the committal means that the body has been separated from community. And I did mention that this particular chapel that we're using will have the curtain. And I know you said that you thought you were okay with that, but I think that sometimes it can be nice just to check in with the family to make sure that that feels good for them and that they understand that will happen, because there is a sense of finality when that happens.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So if you wouldn't mind just making sure Mary and Roger are aware of that,
course.
and letting me know if there's any questions or concerns, and we can work our way through that.
So will that be at the end of the ceremony, those curtains? Is that the final piece?
Essentially, if I kind of go back to how the structure usually happens, the committal would usually take place, there'd be a final farewell and thank you, and then the people would depart. So we're really coming to the close, if you like, of the service. And there will need to be that point where there's that sense of finality.
I can imagine, it will trigger many emotions. So I'll let Mary and Roger and Philip know what to expect. I think that will help them prepare mentally,
of course,
as much as they can.
And do you know at this stage whether or not the family are planning a wake after the service?
They are, they are. Mary and Roger at this stage are planning on having it at their house. They have a lovely backyard at their house in Lismore. And it's not going to be anything extravagant. It'll just be, the family and friends getting together for some food and to decompress after the ceremony.
Yeah. And would you know whether or not they would like me to announce that and invite people at the end of the service, or would they prefer to spread the word just quietly?
If you could say something, I think that would be nice. In the stress of all of this, things get miscommunicated and lost, and I think if we can just give them a reminder of that would be great.
Perfect. Is there anything else that you think would be important to incorporate into the service, or that you had an idea sparked when you knew that you'd be stepping in for the family today?
I think we've covered it. So we've got the artistic expressions, the 6 friends, maybe some symbolism with the paintbrush, camera, shell, and the Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Just to lighten the mood a little bit.
Yeah, sounds really beautiful. Jess, thank you for taking the time. I know it's really difficult, and I know you've had to go through a lot of nitty-gritty detail today, and it can be very upsetting, but I'm really looking forward to working with you over the next couple of days, and this service is going to be really beautiful for Sue-Ann. So I'm going to leave with you my phone number and email. Call me anytime if we need to update any of these details we've gone through. I'll come back to you in the next 48 hours with a rough outline of what this is going to look like, and of course you can feedback. And once we get a final date, we can lock in all those details.
Thank you, Cara. We really, really appreciate your help.
Thanks, Jess.